All right, good day, everybody. It is 12 noon and we are starting our Septic Smart Week webinar. Today, we've got Kathy Mills with us. She's going to be talking to us about 14 ways. Let me get that title back up here. 14 ways homes and business water use impact septic systems. So whether you've got a B&B or a brewery that you're doing, you're at the right place here, and it's certainly 14 other things. My name is Chris Jones. I'm with the University of Arizona. I'm a cooperative extension agent based in Gila County, and I do natural resource types of programming. So anything dealing with watersheds and water use are areas that I'm interested in and sharing with everybody. And so thanks for everybody being here today. I'll go ahead and introduce you to Kathy. Kathy Mills is a physical engineer, is the owner of Mills Engineering in Phoenix, Arizona. She grew up in Tucson, where the groundwater supply was limited and remains limited, I believe. She was a swimmer in high school and college and enjoys the water. Choosing environmental engineering for a career merged with her interest in water, the environment, how things work, and interest in science and math. She has been designing water and wastewater systems in Arizona for over 32 years and is active as a member of the Arizona On-Site Water Recycling Association. So welcome, Kathy. How are you today?
Good, I'm great.
Good. Really happy to have this opportunity to be sharing with our listeners, I guess our webinar people, about septic tanks, and we've really enjoyed the session up to this point, and so we're really looking forward to your presentation today. And with that, why don't I go ahead and ask you to bring up your slides, and you can jump on in. Our participants, go ahead and use the Q&A to put your questions in there, and when Kathy gets through her slides, we'll go ahead and facilitate your questions. So it's all yours. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about 14 ways that home and business water use impacts septic systems. If you have been on the last couple of days, you've learned all about how a septic system works. And so we want to start off with talking about the fact that a septic system is sized based on the number of bedrooms, if it's a residential system. And so 150 gallons per day per bedroom, or 75 gallons per day per person. But we also look at the plumbing fixtures, and if there's more than 7 plumbing fixture units per bedroom, then we increase it one size to add some more capacity. So that's just the basic bare bones of how do we size a septic system for a house. And along with that, we want to remember that an on-site wastewater system or septic system takes sewage, and sewage is defined in the state rules as untreated wastes from toilets, baths, sinks, lavatories, laundries, other plumbing fixtures, and waste pumped from septic tanks in places of human habitation, employment, or recreation. So that's what we're looking at in a normal septic system is residential wastewater that's coming from that house and the normal uses, and it'll have a certain level of organics and a certain level of solids and things like that. And as we covered in one of the days this week, the septic tank is what is used to settle out the heavy solids that are heavier than water and let the scum and greases float on the top and have the clearer water go out to the leach field. So when we're talking about a regular septic system, we're talking about a certain quantity and a certain quality. If we start doing other things in houses or changing the use of the water in the house, then that's going to change either the quantity or the quality or both. So number one, having a home daycare. If you have a lot of little kids in the house during the day, then you probably are having a lot more toilet use than normal. So you're going to have a lot more water for every flush of that toilet. And then also that water is going to change in quality because you're going to have more toilet waste than's normal in comparison to showers and laundry and other things. Or you may even have more laundry if you have daycares that do laundry for some reason. So in that case, you would want to be looking at, well, how is this going to impact the flow? Is this going to overload my system? Is my septic tank not going to work as well because the water is going through it too fast? So things aren't settling out. Is it going to overload my leach lines and it's going to have I'm going to have wet spots? So those are things you need to think about when you're doing something different in your house. And in most cases, I believe you need to be licensed to have a daycare. So that should be caught by the county health department when you're getting licensing. But that's the first way that you may use water in your home that would impact your septic system. The next one is having a vacation home or an Airbnb. So if you have a vacation home where you're not going there very often, say you go a weekend every once in a while, or a whole 1 week in the summer, or a couple weeks in the summer, and then it's vacant a lot of the year, that's going to impact the septic system also. It's not going to be used as much. So in that case, the bacteria may not be living as well because it doesn't have as much food to grow on. But then the opposite, if you have an Airbnb where you're having huge numbers of people come in for a weekend and have a party and have all sorts of impact on your septic system, where instead of having that 150 gallons per day per bedroom for 2 people, you have much more than that, then that's going to overload your system. Your septic tank's not going to work right, and your leach field may get overloaded and cause problems. So that's also going to be a problem, both on mostly on the quantity of the water, but it could be quality too if it's a lot of people using restrooms but not as much doing showers and laundry. So that's number 2, is having a vacation home or an Airbnb. Number 3 would be if you had a hair salon. There, we're not as worried because the hair salon is probably not going to use a whole lot of water other than the shampooing, but that's when you might start having a lot more soap going into your septic tank. Or you might have chemicals that you're using when you're processing, whether you're doing dyeing or you're doing perms or whatever you're doing, there might be a lot more chemicals. So you want to avoid putting those things in the septic system. Those chemicals can kill the bacteria that's working to help remove your waste. So a hair salon in your house or that sort of thing is also going to impact the quality of the water in your septic system. Number 4, home baked goods. If you have a process going on in your house to make tortillas or cookies or something on a grand scale, not just the occasional batch for your family and friends, but we're talking much more than that for sale or for sharing, then you're going to be looking at how are you impacting your septic system with doing that? Are you washing a lot more greases and oils and butters down the waste? Are you doing a lot more loads of dishes? Are you impacting your septic system by doing that? So that's another thing where if you're doing that in your house, you need to make sure that if you're impacting your septic system, that you're taking care of that. You could add a grease interceptor, but you probably want to talk to your local county health department again, because they'll want to be involved in making sure that you do everything to code so that you're doing it right. And then number 5 is a restaurant conversion. Say you set up a small restaurant off your house, or you turn a house that has a residential septic system into a restaurant. Most likely the county health department's going to catch that when you go to get permits for it. But that's another case where a system that's sized based on a 4-bedroom house now has a bunch of people coming to eat in the evening or all day. Then you're going to want to make sure that your system's big enough to handle it. And it also, there may be a grease trap needed for that one also, just because there's a lot more greases that might be entering the wastewater. So that's another way that you may impact your septic system. And then of course, we think of what happens to those pills that you don't use or those medicines that you don't use. Well, just flush it down the toilet. Well, if you have a septic system, you're sending it to that septic tank and it may not get broken down, and it may just pass on through and then get into the groundwater, and that's a big problem. They're even doing testing now to see if septic systems are impacting groundwater by testing for sucralose. Sucralose is a sweetener that's in a lot of foods, but apparently if it's getting into our wastewater and getting into the groundwater, then it's not getting digested, it's not getting removed, it's going all the way through. And that happens with all these chemicals that you may have in your prescriptions, that if you're dumping them down the toilet, then it's ending up in your septic tank and getting into the environment. So you want to avoid that. And there are places that I believe take used prescriptions. So you might want to contact your county health department or local city and see if they have a place that you could take those, or if there's some other way that you can dispose of them, not putting them into the septic system. And along with that, if there's someone in your family that is on some major chemicals, maybe it's chemotherapy, that can affect your septic system as well. So you may want to ask your pumping company to come and check it and make sure it's working properly. So it's those chemicals that can end up into your septic tank, could affect it. Household chemicals. Now we're talking about those weed killers and bug killers and Clorox bleach at a strong concentration. If you have a dark room in your house, if you're changing the oil in your car, all of those things, if you don't want to get them into your septic system, you want to limit the amount of heavy detergents and bleaches that you use, because that could be killing the bacteria in your septic tank. So that's another way that the use of the water in your home is going to affect your septic system. Oop, I think I skipped one there. Auto repair. If you're doing an auto repair shop out of your house and you want to make sure that nothing's getting into your septic system, sorry about that. It's all getting captured and taken away a different way. You don't want to be dumping oils and greases and things like that into your septic system. So that's another situation. And another thing you could be doing in your house is have laundry service, bring other people's laundry in and doing it. And that's going to increase the amount of soaps and detergents getting into your septic system. Also, it'll increase the volume of water. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do something like that, your septic system can handle it and you're taking care of it. Of course, there's also those illegal uses of homes. If you have a drug lab if someone has a drug lab in their house, then obviously that could get chemicals into the septic system. And apparently the pumpers look for certain signs so that they know it's a drug lab. And the other option would be if you had lots and lots of people in your house for some reason, and so you're overloading your system. So illegal uses of the home can impact your septic system. And if you changed a house to a school, then it's going to change the use again. And for that, you'll also need to check and make sure that the volume and also the quality see if it's being changed by changing the use of the house into a school. Because schools, if you think about it, the children, most of the use is from restrooms. And one of the contaminants that we look at is nitrogen. And in urine, and there's ammonia, and ammonia has lots of nitrogen. And so it ends up being a contaminant that schools have high nitrogen in their wastewater, and that's difficult to remove. And the soil doesn't remove it either. So if it's going through your septic system, ending up in the groundwater, that's a bad situation for contaminating future water supplies or the wells around you. So if you're going to use your house as a school or change it over at some point, you're going to need to make sure that you change your system to remove some of that nitrogen, so it's no more than normal. Number 12 would be if it was a winery or a brewery. If in your house you have a home brewery, you want to make sure you're not dumping a lot of waste like hops or something down into your septic tank, because it's not sized to handle a lot of organics like that. It's just sized for normal home wastewater. So that's another situation. And pet care, if you're doing sitting or washing dog washes, that sort of thing, you want to make sure that you have a lint trap that's collecting that water, and you want to make sure that you're not overloading your system by the volume of water that you're using to wash pets. So that's another situation. And so now we get to number 14, a water softener or a water filter. And if you have a water softener, that water softener works by transferring the sodium from the salt in the water softener with the calcium and magnesium that's in your drinking water, and it has a waste stream that's high in that calcium and magnesium. And it also will dump the brine water after it recharges the system. So you're going to have high calcium, high magnesium at some points, and then high salt at other points. And salt tends to plug up the soil. So if this is getting into your septic tank, it's going to disturb how that's operating. And then it's going to get out into your leach field, and it could cause that high sodium could cause plugging of your soil, and your leach field may have to be replaced sooner than normal. And in addition to the water softener, there's also the RO systems. And RO systems, if you have a home system, they can waste up to 50% of the water that they're treating. So you may increase the water that's being disposed, and it's also going to be high in that calcium and magnesium and other things that's being removed by the membrane from your RO system. So that's another one you want to consider if you're doing those things. Is there another way you can handle the waste streams from those water treatment systems? So that's a quick run through on those 14 ways that you could change the water quality or change the water quantity of what's going to your septic system. And when you're doing all those, you want to make sure that what you're doing, first of all, is keeping with the fact that you have an on-site wastewater system that's supposed to be getting sewage, which is from a home. And so you want to make sure that if you're not doing that, that you're getting changes made to your septic system so it can handle it. For a lot of the wineries and breweries, what they do is they do a pre-treatment where they take the waste that's from processing the grapes or the hops, and they pre-treat it. So then the treated water that comes out of the pre-treatment then meets the quality, the same quality as if it had come out of a house. And then that goes into the septic system so that you're taking care of that issue. So that's that's what you want to make sure. Either don't put whatever it is, those chemicals and things into the septic system, or you want to make sure the system is changed so that it can handle it. Because obviously, if you have to replace your septic system, the leach field can, I mean, the cost for replacing that depends on the size of it and how hard your soil is. It could be for anywhere from a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. So you don't want to have to be replacing things because of things that you did that you could have avoided. I'd also like to talk for a few minutes about the different careers there are in on-site wastewater. You could become a lab technician, and you could test water in the lab, working for either for a water company or for a city or something like an agency that does testing. You can be out in the field taking samples that then go into the lab for testing. You could be in construction, building the on-site wastewater systems, installing them, doing soil testing, that sort of thing. And you could also be in design and engineering, where you're taking the data on the soil and the size of the system and drawing up plans and getting permits. Or you can be working on the regulation side, where you're reviewing those plans that come in to get a permit. You're going out into the field to inspect those systems that are being installed to make sure they follow what the plans show they're supposed to do. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved in a career in on-site wastewater. And with that, anybody have any questions?
Well, Kathy, those 14 ways are all good stuff here, and very efficient. We got through those, but I bet you hopefully we got some more questions. I got a window of time here that we could go into a little more depth about ones that people are interested in. And so we've already got a question here. Can a septic system handle copper sulfate twice a year to kill roots in the line to the tank?
So copper sulfate would also likely be killing the bacteria in the septic tank. So, and then it's going to get into the environment too. I mean, if it kills off the bacteria in the septic tank, it's going to grow back. But if there's a way that you could prevent the roots from getting in there in the first place, I don't know if there's a way you could have the piping dug up to find out where those joints are, or where those roots are getting in to prevent them from growing, rather than having to dump a chemical into the tank. That would be helpful.
Okay, so even twice a year, copper sulfate is probably not a good idea. Be better to find out why those roots are there and resolve it, because it could be a place they're coming in, and roots tend to expand, and so the problem tends to get worse with time.
Right.
So yeah. All right, another question. Did you discuss what happens when your single family residence now becomes an Airbnb. So why don't you go some more into that? I know that was one you did bring up.
Yeah, so if a system is sized for, say, a 4-bedroom home with 2 people per bedroom, and it's like it's 600 gallons per day, and that'd be a normal everyday thing, then all of a sudden on a weekend you have 30 people come in there because they're all joining in to share a house for the weekend, whether it be to attend a sporting event or whatever, why they're there, just to be a tourist or whatever it is. Then suddenly you're quadrupling, quintupling the design flow, and that's going to cause a problem. It would make the solids in the settling in the septic tank are supposed to settle out, and the greases are supposed to float. But if there's supposed to be a 2-day retention time, and if you have 5 times more water going through, it's not going to have that 2-day retention time, and all the water is going to just flush on through. The solids aren't going to settle out. Those solids could end up either clogging your effluent filter if you have one on the outlet of your septic tank. If you don't, then they would end up plugging up the leach lines and causing problems, so that you may have to even replace the system sooner than normal. So it's just a way of overloading your system.
So if you do this, you should probably be pretty strict about the size of that party. You know,
Yes.
if your home was designed for 6 people, you should probably have a 6-person limit on your on the size of your Airbnb. Okay, next question here. Hot tubs on these Airbnbs. Can this water be routed into the septic system?
So hot tubs are typically chlorinated, and the chlorinated water would end up in the septic tank and would be harming the bacteria that's in it. So
Also be a large quantity of water.
Right, that's the other thing. It'd be large quantity, yeah. So for those 2 reasons, it would be a bad idea to send it in the septic system.
Would it be okay to be doing a gray water system where you're letting that out, you know, onto the lawn, as long as it matches the gray water requirements?
As long as it's not going to leave the site, and it's just going to be used for irrigation, I wouldn't see why not. That could certainly
Probably
happen.
better than putting it into the septic system.
Right.
All right, good
Definitely.
question. All right, next question here. What are the considerations for waking up, restarting the use of a septic system that is sat unused for an extended period? So a lot of people have their second homes and they sit there for several months between uses.
So obviously, when you start using water in the home, you're going to start the water flowing through. But you might, if I don't know if it's a seasonal thing, if it's just a summer home that you go up to, you don't go in the wintertime, it might have a seasonal thing where you check it when you first get there and check it before you leave to make sure there's no issues. If the water levels dropped or something, make sure that there's not an issue with it. As far
And
as
check it, you mean going to the riser and taking a look at and peering inside?
Right, peer into the tank to see, is the water level really low for some reason, or is it really high? And just to double check, as far as the bacteria from all the uses in the house is going to start the tank to work again. And I know there's some products on the market that say enzymes and things like that I've never heard that they do that much, but they can't hurt. So you could even look at something like that. I
imagine the best the way they wake it up is they use the toilet and flush it, right?
Right.
It starts to wake up. Like, I got work to do. But that's good advice to, you know, check on it. And that's another good reason to have a riser rather than having it buried. So some practices that some people may need to change. Okay, next question. Most drinking water has a low amount of chlorine in it. Could that be a problem?
Because most drinking water has only like 1 part per million, whereas I think a pool would have more like 5, so probably 5 times more. So, and plus when you're using the water in your shower, you're adding soap and things that take the chlorine out or deactivate it, I guess I should say. And same with dishwasher and most other uses. So I don't think that the low amount of chlorine in the drinking water is going to be a problem. Yeah.
It's low enough, shouldn't be an issue. I'm not too sure how, and the real issue of this, but oftentimes I'll have gardeners say, oh, that water you get off the tap's really high pH. No, I don't know if it's that unusual, but could pH issues have any issue with the septic tank? I guess it'd have to be particularly alkaline or particularly acid to make a big difference.
Right, then that would be if you're putting an acid in it or putting something cleaner of something, borax or something that has high in pH. So most likely, if your drinking water has a higher pH, it's probably higher, not that much higher. It's just that it's going to likely have a lot more salts in it too. So you probably know you have hard water, and so you see those rings around the toilet, and so that's where you'd want to watch and see, have your septic tank checked occasionally to make sure that there's no issues, because hard water could carry out and plug up the leach lines eventually.
Could help come. Okay, that's good to know. All right. Can you touch on hauled water? Many of the homes around here use hauled water. Okay, can you touch on this issue? If less water is being used inside the house, what are the long-term effects of less water storage and the treatment of the wastewater?
So yeah, if you're using less water but the same amount of everything else, then it's going to be a higher concentration of the organics and other waste that are in the water. So it just means that the septic tank's going to have more work to do as far as breaking down things. And that's going to happen now as people use more and more gray water as well. If they're separating out their gray water and using it for irrigation or even flushing toilets, anything like that. So I think this is going to continue to be, our wastewater is going to get more concentrated, and so it's just going to mean that septic tank's going to have to do more work.
But I guess taking your shower and allowing that to go in, or your dish, I mean, one or the other. I mean, that or your clothes washer, but some source of water, because it is important. It is a major component, right? Like most of a septic tank is water. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, next question. I started hundreds of garden vegetable plants each spring, or she starts them each spring, and rinse the pots in the fall. Would washing residual peat moss left in the pots harm the septic tank?
The question would be, how much volume are we talking about? I think a little bit of peat moss washing into the septic would just give it more organics to settle out.
So she's got hundreds of plants.
Oh, hundreds.
And she rinsed the pots. So again, perhaps you can say how big your pots are. Perhaps they're just, she mentions a pot. So is it a 4-inch pot? Is it, something bigger or larger?
Yeah, I would think if it's hundreds and it's gallons and gallons of water, then I would say it's probably not a good idea. But I don't see why you couldn't use that to irrigate something.
Yeah, so she's got 4-inch pots, and a lot of times, when we do that, just a light Clorox bath is also something you're 1 part per gallon, a tablespoon per gallon or whatever, because you get certain bacterias, the damping off and so on, that can stay in the pots and be an issue. But typically you can wash that outside of the sink and have that go out into the lawn. Okay. Are there better detergents for laundry and bathing that are easier on the bacteria in the septic system? Are there some that should be avoided? There's a good question.
So yes, it's better to use the detergents that are easier to break down in the environment. I'm sure that there's lists online that have that. I don't have it handy here, but we certainly can get a list and have that available online if that's something that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah, we can try to look into that, and maybe we can get it posted when I get these webinars up, perhaps I'm gonna
Yeah,
that question about laundry and detergents.
that's a good idea.
Okay. Next question. Would it hurt my leach field to drain a saltwater spa, 250 gallons on it once a year? I would not put it into the septic tank. So I guess she's draining the spa over her leach field.
Yeah, if it's salt water with sodium in it, it's that sodium that tends to plug up soil. That's why in places where people irrigate, they tend to, especially in the Central Valley around Phoenix, they tend to over irrigate to wash those salts past the soil. So we don't want to be dumping salt onto the soil if we can avoid it, because it tends to plug it up.
So she should probably find another place to drain that saltwater spa. And it's hard to know what exactly is sensitive to all that salt. Many grasses aren't. Most trees are. And so it just but it can be an issue over your leach field. Okay, next question. As an engineer, can you tell us what you see as the biggest growth areas with on-site wastewater? Single family homes? Are you receiving lots of requests for RV parks, small, large commercial, etc.? Or is it slowing down?
So I'd say a lot of custom homes on large lots that are not near sewer, and in the areas that people have more money, they're still going strong, it seems like. And some large commercial, and some of them are temporary for large commercials, such as say a gas station and convenience store that sewer is going to be extended in 3 years, but in the meantime they want to go ahead and build, so they're going to put in a temporary septic system. I'm seeing quite a few of those going in right now. And but not some, I haven't seen so many RV parks. So unless it's
Okay.
usually with them, it's if it's an older park that needs help. I haven't seen that many new ones, but maybe I'm just not seeing them. It's hard to know.
Yeah, could be different counties where that's going on.
Yeah.
But single family homes, people where they're building on lots where there isn't septic. Okay, so all right, there you go. Got it from the inside. All right, where we're all moving toward the use of low flow toilets and faucets. What is the impact on the septic system, if any?
So we're sizing our leach field based on a certain amount of water, so that's going to be oversized, which means it probably lasts longer. Well, so that's good. However, the quality that the water is going to get much more strong as far as the organics and things that are in it. So that's where that septic tank is going to have to work extra hard to try to break down those things and remove them. I should be curious to see if anyone's really studied what we should do to a septic system if in that case. I haven't seen anything, but we certainly can look and see if there is any.
There, you would hope that there's some of that out there. What are some of the minimum water quantities? Because basically we're waiting for it to fail. Otherwise, we're assuming it's working. Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
is there a point where we're going to need to add something to help with it? Are we going to need to add oxygen or aeration of some kind to help with this heavy organic water?
Low amount of water. Yeah.
Some kind of pre-treatment or something. Yeah.
Okay. So our question about the pots, she responded back and said she soaks it in the sink and dunks in a 10% bleach. If you're doing all of them in one weekend, I think that'd be a big thing for your septic tank. If you're doing a handful of them each week, it's probably not. That almost becomes kind of normal use. I don't know. 10% bleach is kind of a large bleach, so that'd be kind of hard on it.
Yes.
But I guess the poison is in the portion. Okay, next. Can we use the 0.8 stealth toilet sold at Home Depot and reduce our fixture count with the 312 gallon
The 312G is a
Uh,
variance.
or 312G.
Yeah.
Our rules don't recognize these.
So if you want to switch out your toilet to something that's a compost toilet, I'm not sure if the Steeth one is or not. I'm not familiar with that one, but if you want to use something with your septic system, it's supposed to be on the, well, if it's a plumbing fixture, then it's fine, but if it's a compost toilet that is not going to the septic system anymore, then it needs to be on the ADQ proprietary products list for compost toilets. So if it's not on that, then you either need to contact the manufacturer to ask them to get it put on, or you'd have to pick one of the ones that is on it. Because those have been approved. They sent their information to the state, and the state reviewed it all and said, yes, you meet our requirements that we're looking for in a compost toilet.
Okay, he can confirm that it's a plumbing fixture.
Oh, okay, then,
Okay,
yeah, that would be fine.
good. All right, we still got room for some more questions. Thinking back to the 14 points, you mentioned converting a house into a school, and you're going to have all these additional young people, like you said, the urine. I wasn't expecting that to become an issue with that. I guess a solution would be a larger tank, perhaps, or just kind of watching what happens there, because I was hoping our tank would take care of that. So just what has happened there with the schools and overloading of nitrogen?
So with schools, if they're a small school, then they just have to size the septic system based on the number of students. But if it's a larger school, then the state's worried about the nitrogen being an impact. And so we're talking if we're getting, gosh, over, what would it be? Over 200 students, then you're definitely gonna be looking at how can we reduce the nitrogen, which means you're gonna need to put an advanced treatment system in that does something, adding oxygen and recycling the water to reduce the nitrogen going out of the septic
Okay.
system into the leach field.
All right, so quite a few students, up to like 200 students makes it.
Yeah.
But it's the size of your tank's going to make the difference too. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that'll be based on the number of students.
yeah. Okay, good clarification. So, as you were going through the 14 items, there's things that the normal homeowner may not think of, but also things that I guess should be just common sense when you have a septic tank. So, if you're going into a business, what are the things that you just consider common sense? I mean, your septic tank should only be for bodily waste, it should be, how you're and anyway, you're getting rid of water. So just what would you say are common sense things about a septic tank?
Yeah, you don't dump anything that you wouldn't consider dumping into your swimming pool, maybe, to as far as chemicals, because you wouldn't be dumping motor oils and pharmaceuticals and all that stuff in your swimming pool, because that would impact your health as you're swimming. But so anything like that, and then anything that's going to be more than what would normally be out of a house, other than toilet waste, showers, laundry.
Yeah. Okay. Unless some people give us some more questions, we may start to close this down today. Anybody else have some more questions? Thank you for being with us today. Okay. Give me just a moment here. And I'll announce tomorrow's presentation. All right. So next week, so Kathy, thank you so much for your time today and the information you shared with us. I think something specific like this for businesses and septic tanks, this recording, I bet is going to get a lot of use. So thank you for everybody being with us. And please tune back. Tomorrow's Friday. It'll be the end of our webinar series for Septic Smart Week. We've got Joelle Worth joining us, and she's going to be talking about the on-site role in Arizona's water future. So maybe, I believe I saw her in the audience here, so some of these questions may be helpful. And check the Q&A here. It's people saying thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And so have a good rest of your afternoon, people, and please share this with some colleagues, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.